Hello students, in my last lecture we talked about the asexual type of reproduction, that is binary fission in amoeba, fragmentation in Spirogyra, and we have talked about the regeneration in Planaria. Today we will be talking about the other methods of asexual reproduction, that is known as budding. Now budding also takes place in Hydra. Remember, Hydra में the one type of asexual reproduction is budding and the other is the fragmentation also. Hydra is a multicellular organism. Now in Hydra certain regenerative cells are present. These regenerative cells, they give rise to any type of cells, and as a result from the regenerative cell a complete Hydra can be produced. Now what happened in the budding, that this is Hydra, a small outgrowth that develops. Now where this outgrowth develops in the region where the regenerative cells are there. Okay. Now this outgrowth, it ultimately increases and it take a shape of a bud, which is known as a bud. Now this bud takes place because of the repeated cell division of the regenerative cell. Regenerative cells की बार बार division होती है, many cells are formed, as a result the ultimately a bud like structure is formed. This bud like structure actually then give rise to a fully matured bud which have the tentacles also. ये जो hair like structures दिख रहे हैं, these are the tentacles. So this is a fully matured bud having the tentacles. This bud is still attached to the parent Hydra, but ultimately this get detached from the parent body. Here you can see ये जो bud है, fully matured bud है, ये parent body से detach हो जाती है, and this bud give rise to the another new plant. Okay, so this is known as a budding in Hydra. Now budding in Hydra, what is the difference between the binary fission in amoeba and budding in Hydra? यहाँ Hydra की जो body है, it still is present. The bud gets detached, but the body of the Hydra still remains. The another method of reproduction which takes place in unicellular organism, that is yeast. Okay, now in yeast also the asexual method of reproduction, that is known as a budding. But पहले जो मैंने स्लाइड दिखा ली है वो हाइड्रा जो है वो मल्टीसेलुलर ऑर्गेनिज्म है, जबकि yeast जो है ये यूनिसेलुलर ऑर्गेनिज्म है. सो दिस इज yeast. Yeast में भी one outgrowth develops in one side and this is known as a bud. Now when this bud develops, at the same time karyokinesis takes place. Now karyokinesis मैंने तुम्हें पहले भी बताया है, the division of the nucleus is known as karyokinesis. तो यहाँ देखो the karyokinesis हो रहा है, दो न्यूक्लियस बन गए हैं, उसमें से एक न्यूक्लियस तो पेरेंट बड yeast में रहता है and second nucleus shift to the bud. तो you can see here the one nucleus shifted to the bud and ultimately a constriction is formed at the base. ये constriction बन गई यहाँ पे. So नीचे जो है constriction is formed and then this bud with one nucleus, it gets detached and give rise to the new organism. So this is again a asexual type of reproduction which takes place in yeast by budding. Again what is the difference? Unlike binary fission कहाँ पे होता है? Binary fission भी unicellular organism में होता है, but unicellular organism में binary fission में the parent cell divide into two. So ultimately parent body is not there, but यहाँ पे yeast में the parent body does exist. ये नीचे की जो parent body है वो exist करती है and the bud gets detached. Second thing, in amoeba, that is in binary fission, you must have noticed that the cytokinesis is equal. That means parent cell जो है it divides into two. So cytokinesis, two daughter cells are formed which are almost of equal size. But यहाँ पे जो cytokinesis है, that is a division of the cell, it is unequal. ये जो bud है यहाँ पे कम cytoplasm है and नीचे जो parent body रह जाती है इसमें the amount of cytoplasm is more. So these are the two differences between the binary fission which takes place in unicellular organism and the budding which takes place in yeast, which is a unicellular fungi. Okay, next we'll talk about the asexual type of reproduction in plants. Now asexual type of reproduction in plants is known as a vegetative reproduction, or another name is vegetative propagation. Now why asexual type of reproduction in plants is known as vegetative propagation or vegetative reproduction? Because this type of reproduction takes place from the vegetative parts of the cell. ये जो vegetative propagation है ये plant के vegetative parts में से another organism is formed, another plant is formed. Now ये vegetative parts क्या होते हैं? The root of the plant which is there inside the soil, the stem of the plant which is above the soil, and the leaves which are present on the stem, on the branches. So this root, stem and the leaf, these are the vegetative parts of a plant. So a new organism is formed either from the root or from the stem or from the leaves. तो ये अगर vegetative part है तो reproductive plant का part कौन सा है? Flower is known as a reproductive part of a plant. Okay, now this vegetative propagation which takes place either from the root or from the stem or from the leaf. There are two methods in vegetative propagation. One is known as a natural method of vegetative propagation which occur naturally, and other is known as an artificial method of vegetative propagation. In this artificial method, the human interference is essential. That means जो farmers हैं या हम लोग जो हैं, we are involved in the artificial method of vegetative propagation. First we will be talking about the natural methods of vegetative propagation. Now natural method of vegetative propagation, one is vegetative propagation by the roots. That means roots of a plant give rise to another plant. The example of vegetative propagation by the root is dahlia and the sweet potato. Sweet potato तुम्हें मालूम होगा जो हम शकरकंदी खाते हैं, that is known as a sweet potato. जो हम ये शकरकंदी खाते हैं ना, actually ये होता क्या है? ये root है. Root stores the food material. So this is a sweet potato. What happened? In this root, a small notches are there, a small bud-like structures are formed which are known as the adventitious buds. So the adventitious buds, there may be many adventitious buds in one root. These adventitious buds, they give rise to a complete plant if these adventitious buds are taken out and they are grown in the soil. Then a new plant develops from these vegetative buds. So this is a vegetative propagation by roots. The two examples are dahlia and the sweet potato. The vegetative propagation in case of stem is in banana. The vegetative propagation takes place through the stem. In potato, जो हम आलू खाते हैं, potato खाते हैं, that is actually a stem. Stem stores the food material, because you must have seen that ये जो potato है, they are always underground, नीचे ज़मीन के नीचे उगते हैं. So potato जो हम खाते हैं वो कौन सा part है plant का? वो stem है. Similarly, this is a potato. Potato का जो stem है इसको tuber बोलते हैं. That is known as a tuber. So it is a tuber of the potato. अब ये तुमने बहुत बार देखा होगा कि पोटैटो में भी स्मॉल स्मॉल आइज़ आर प्रेजेंट. ये बहुत सारी एक पोटैटो में डिप्रेशन से होते हैं जिनको हम आइज़ बोलते हैं. एक्चुअली दीज आइज़ जो हैं दे रिप्रेजेंट अ टाइप ऑफ अ बड विच इज़ नोन एज एन एक्सिलरी बड. ओके, नाउ दीज एक्सिलरी बड्स विच आर नोन एज द आइज़, दे गिव राइज टू द न्यू प्लांट. अगर ये तुम आइज़ को निकाल के ज़मीन में उगा दो तो वहाँ से भी एक प्लांट निकल आएगा. तुमने देखा होगा बहुत बार रेनी सीज़न में जो पोटैटो होते हैं, इसमें से ग्रीन कलर की लीव्स लाइक स्ट्रक्चर्स दे start coming out during the rainy season when the moisture is present in the environment. So these new plants, they develop. You can make maybe 10 to 15 new plants from one potato tuber. एक potato में जितनी eyes हैं उतनी eyes को तुम निकाल के अगर वो ज़मीन पे लगा दो तो each eye will develop into a plant. So this is vegetative propagation by the stem, which takes place in banana also as well as in potato also. The third part, that is vegetative propagation by the leaves. So this vegetative propagation by the leaves takes place in Bryophyllum, Bignonia or the Kalanchi. Now in Bryophyllum, this is a diagram of Bryophyllum. ये Bryophyllum की leaf है. Now as you can see, the leaf of this Bryophyllum, it has small notches. ये देखो इसका जो surface है, leaf का जो surface है वो smooth नहीं है, small notches are there. Okay, in notches में one bud-like structure develops, and that bud-like structure is known as adventitious buds. So ये इसको leafy bud भी बोलते हैं, क्योंकि bud-like structures develop in the tuber, potato में भी, but उनको क्या बोलते हैं, eyes. Okay, so these leafy buds, they develop in the notches of the leaf of the Bryophyllum, and from these leafy buds, from these adventitious buds of the Bryophyllum, a complete plant develops. ये देखो ऊपर leaves बन गए हैं, नीचे जो है roots बन गए हैं, and when this bud, ये bud जो है having one or two leaves and some roots, it get detached from the leaf, it give rise to another plant. So these are the three examples of vegetative propagation: by the root, that is in sweet potato, by the stem, that is in potato, and by the leaves, that is in case of Bryophyllum. These are the natural methods. These are the natural methods in which the human interference is not there. Okay, the eyes जो हैं in potato, ultimately they give rise to a new plant if the potato is there underground. The second method I told you, the second method is the artificial method. So we will be talking about the artificial method of vegetative propagation in my next lecture. Thank you, students.